Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight all around us we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rang loud, the bombs bursting in air, yea, prove through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave over a hamper the free and the home of the brave.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and honored veterans, would you please join with me in a word of prayer? Lord, tonight we gather in the name of love, charity, and hope. It was your power and might that created all that we see, the deep oceans that we sail, the great lands we roam, and the vast skies we gaze at and wonder. But it was your love that surpassed all these things. And so in turn, it is in the name of that great love that you have bestowed in our hearts that we gather here tonight. Tonight, Father, we seek as well to celebrate Operation New Uniform, created with the concept of loving their veteran neighbor by giving them resources, training them to fulfill their careers and develop their skills as they transition from serving our country to once again becoming a part of their community. Members experience high levels of stress in the military, low levels of sleep, and at times, overcoming levels of doubt, failure, and fear. But it is this organization, Father, that has reached out in love to welcome the veteran into a future they themselves have worked so hard for and dreamed of. We are indebted to our veterans for our freedom and liberty, and it is with that that we ask, Father, you bless this night. Would you be honored tonight by our goal of serving our nation's veteran population? For it is with that great love that has moved us to do so. In your mighty, powerful name we pray. Amen.
Please be seated, folks. Thank you, Akia, and thank you, Chaplain Gaston, for the blessing and the inspirational song, patriotic start to our evening. So please, for all of you out there, continue to enjoy your meal as we move along with our program. As I said, my name is Bob Buell, I'll be your Master of Ceremonies tonight. I'm a retired Navy captain. I was a naval aviator, and I was first introduced to ONU a few years ago when I was involved in the veteran community, and I saw the work that they were doing when I went to the graduation ceremonies, and they were just fabulous. And that's why we're here tonight, is to help support that organization and help the folks who have served their country and now are making that transition to the civilian world. You're going to hear a lot of stories tonight from Operation New Uniform, from some of the success stories. And we're hoping that through tonight we can continue this work, because it's not easy and it costs money. And you may be surprised to hear that military people have trouble transitioning, but the fact is, you come out of the military, you take the uniform off, but you're still a military person. You think that way. You don't think like the civilian world. And most military veterans, when it comes to their transition and what their next career is going to be, they just say, I can do anything. And they can, but they need more focus than that. It's not easy to transition to the civilian world without us. Thank you, sir. But we want you to enjoy your meal too. That's okay. But really, it is hard for them. Just speaking the language, Operation New Uniform gives them that translation, those skills. So you're going to learn more about that tonight, and how Operation New Uniform is really changing lives. And my personal experience with Operation New Uniform is I run now the Veterans Center at the University of North Florida, and having seen the results of the Operation New Uniform graduates, when we had an opening for a transition coach, very important position in our at the university. We have about 1,400 veteran or military affiliated students going there. First thing I did was called Operation New Uniform and said, here's our job. I want to hire a veteran for this job, and I think it's probably one of yours. And that gentleman sitting in the room tonight is Willie Mitch Mitchell, sitting in the back there. And we hit a home run, because he's changed the lives of students out there. He takes care of them in every way you can imagine. Transition from uniform to academia, and from academia to the civilian working world. So that's the kind of product you get from Operation New Uniform. So this is a good time to segue to a story of another remarkable veteran who you all know, I think. He rose through the ranks of the United States Navy and is here in a sense tonight, at least on video. And he supports the mission and work of ONU. So if you would play the video, we'll see this Navy veteran.
Hi, I'm Senator Rick Scott. I'd like to welcome you to the 2019 Heroes Gala. Thank you to Operation New Uniform for your hard work and dedication to helping our veterans as they transition into the workforce. As a Navy veteran and the son of a World War II veteran, I know firsthand the sacrifices made by our military members and their families. Our veterans are true heroes. They've risked their lives to serve our country and protect our freedoms. As governor and now as U.S. Senator, I will always do everything I can to support our veterans so they can succeed and live their dreams. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thanks. Great message from former Governor, now Senator Scott. And now I'd like to talk to you a little bit about our next speaker, who's our introducer, Jennifer Carroll. You know Jennifer Carroll. You've probably heard of her. She immigrated to America from the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, West Indies, as a young woman, and she enlisted in the United States Navy after high school. She rose through the enlisted ranks and became a Naval Aviation Maintenance Officer and served 20 years. And I first met Jennifer when I was working for Mayor John Payton in City Hall, and she was an advocate for veterans then and has been ever since. She went on to serve as Florida's 18th Lieutenant Governor, the first female elected to that role statewide. A former business owner, she's also served as the former executive director of the Florida Department of Veterans Affairs and oversaw the Department of Military Affairs, Florida Department of Veterans Affairs. She's held a number of other executive level positions, highly regarded as a speaker, as an author, and truly a friend of the veterans of the state of Florida. Please join me in welcoming the former Lieutenant Governor to the stage, Jennifer Carroll.
Good evening, everyone. I know you're more alive than that. Good evening, everyone. Wonderful. This is a great event, and I so appreciate you being here because keep in mind, although we appreciate our veterans, and we appreciate our veterans showing up, our family members, our neighbors and friends, and our business community, we do have a silent auction going on out there. Lots of great stuff. So make sure that I don't beat you out of that gift that you want for Christmas on there. So I ask you to make sure during the evening you go out there and look at the items up for auction. I want to share a little story with you. And I mentioned this is a fundraiser for Operation New Uniform. Back in 1979, a little girl who was an immigrant from Trinidad and Tobago wanted to serve her country and give back. Going to the recruiter's office, I went to the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, the Army. Well, the Navy won me over because of their salt and pepper uniform that they had. It's all about the fashion back then. It still is today. But that uniform transitioned when I became an officer. I started out as an E1 non-rate, cleaning up the hangar tracks with bird poop, getting turco in my eye, cleaning the aircrafts, doing all the grunt work. But you know what it taught me? That hard work is not going to kill anyone. It's going to make you stronger. It's going to build character. And one of the things about the military that it teaches you is how to work together. And in that vein, although I transitioned from one uniform as an enlisted person to a khaki uniform as an officer, and then retiring after 20 years of service as an aviation maintenance officer, lieutenant commander, then transitioning into government and putting on a business suit as a new uniform, it was a completely different world from the military to civilian life. And many of our military men and women are so focused on the mission and the task and the job that they're not thinking about civilian life. They're not thinking about the after. There's going to come a time where it's time to get out, whether it's for physical reasons, medical reasons, or retirement, or you just had enough. But while we're in service, we're all about the mission. We have a standard operating procedure. We have our buddy system. We help each other out. We have upward mobility and professional development. And then you come into the community, and there's no longer that camaraderie. You wonder, what am I going to wear tomorrow? After you come out the next day, do I have a suit, whether a man or woman? How do I interview for a job? How do I present myself from the skill sets that I had in the military to put into now this civilian community for them to understand that I am a valued asset to your business? And that's how we have to look at our military men and women coming out of service. And our military men and women have to look at themselves as a solid value added to our civilian community. You've been trained in how to think critically. You've been trained in how to show up for work on time. You've been trained how to be reliable and dependable. You've been trained on how to take responsibility for your actions. You've been trained in how to help others elevate up to the next level. So how could the civilian community not embrace something like this? But we have to share that story. We have to tell the civilian community, the business community, how important it is to give back to these men and women that have given up so much of themselves to our country and our way of life. That's what Operation New Uniform is all about. With your commitment to helping and donating and sharing the story about Operation New Uniform and the importance of them connecting the business community with our military men and women who has given up so much of themselves to sacrifice for our country and our greater way of life, the least that we can do is to continue to support this great organization. So I thank you very much for brazing the traffic out there today, The weather that is not Florida weather, that's Georgia weather that creeped into Florida this evening. But you came through because you're troopers. I truly support you, and I salute our men and women. And I will be back up to introduce Colonel Oliver North to be our special guest speaker. Continue enjoying your meal at this time. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the moment we all been waiting for, besides the food that you just had to eat. I hope you enjoyed your food. If you can please give a round of applause to the chef and the wait staff that's done a great job serving us this evening. And also to the staff and volunteers that put this event together. This has absolutely been fantastic. Give them a round of applause as well. And let's not forget you. You're looking so good tonight. Give yourselves a round of applause as well. It gives me great pleasure this evening to introduce to some a great man and a wonderful patriot, Colonel Oliver North. Colonel North is a combat decorated U.S. Marine. Is the second arm of the United States Navy. We won't hold that against you. #1 best-selling author, founder of a small business, and holder of 3 U.S. patents. Can you adopt me? For 17 years, he was a syndicate columnist and a host of war stories, which I loved watching on the weekends. It was one of the best things on Fox during the weekends, Colonel, I'll have you know that. In May 2018, he retired from Fox to serve as the 66th president of the National Rifle Association of America, for which I am a lifetime member. Colonel North, I'm just getting into your portfolio here, very much so, so adoption is coming up pretty soon. Colonel North was born in San Antonio, graduated from the United States Naval Academy, served 22 years as a U.S. Marine. His combat awards include the Silver Star, the Bronze Star for Valor, and 2 Purple Hearts for wounds in action. Colonel North served as counterterrorism coordinator on the National Security Council staff. He helped plan the rescue of the U.S. students in Grenada, the rescue of American hostages, the capture of the Achille Laurel hijackers, and the raids on Gaddafi's terrorist bases, after which he was targeted for assassination by a jihad. President Ronald Reagan described Colonel North as an American hero. Colonel North has authored 17 best-selling books. Colonel, I like to read books, again, rubbing the elbows. And is a co-founder of Freedom Alliance, an organization serving wounded U.S. military personnel and their families. He is widely acclaimed for award-winning Fox News coverage of more than 60 U.S. units in combat and his Freedom Alliance College Heroes Scholarship for Children of service members killed in and/or permanently disabled in a line of duty. Yet, he says his greatest achievement is being the God-fearing husband of almost 51 years. Next, on the 18th, he's going to be 51 years married. And he's a father. And he's a father of 4 and grandfather of 18. So this man knows how to multiply. So let us welcome Colonel North to the stage.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer, for your service and for creating this wonderful organization, Operation New Uniform, and all the great things that you're doing, which have to be done and no one else is doing as well as you are. I'm surrounded by heroes this evening. I know that many of you are helping other heroes in the process. You've told me that. General Fleming, fellow Marine, happy birthday 2 days from now. I'm getting ready. You know, the Marine Corps was actually founded in a bar. A lot of people don't know that. Ton Tavern in Philadelphia, first recruiting station. And we've carried on the tradition. Captain Bune is also our MC tonight, but he's also the former commanding officer of the largest bed and breakfast the U.S. Navy owned down in Guantanamo Bay. Some very interesting guests down there. I notice they have a hard time checking out. They check in okay, but all of you who have been in service as the Armed Forces of the United States, welcome home. Thank you for being part of this evening. I know many of you have come up and told me about it. I'm grateful to be a part of this salute to your service and to the strength of veterans, which is what the whole idea of what you all are here for tonight, and I'm going to encourage that as best I can. By the way, thank you again for those who prepared and served the meal. It was great. For those of you who are serving now or who have ever served in any branch of the Armed Forces, just raise your hands. Thank you. For those of you who don't have they and their mates and their children really are American heroes. They are the kinds of people who volunteered. Nope, not since 1973 has anybody been drafted in the Armed Forces of the United States. So everybody who's on active duty now, and most of us who are retired, we're in as a consequence of not the draft, but because we volunteered. When Lieutenant Governor Carroll's folks first contacted me about being here this evening, they asked me to consider what is most important to me about veterans and what veterans consider to be the most important things about them. And I want to talk about that tonight, because what's important to them is what makes them important to you who are employers. Now, and that's not hard for me. I've spent nearly 3/4 of a century in the company of those wearing our nation's uniforms. My mom and dad met in 1941 at a USO dance at Fort Niagara in upstate New York. They married in 1942. By the time I was born in 1943 at Fort Sam Houston, my dad was already deployed with the 95th Infantry Division, part of Patton's Third Army, preparing for the invasion of Normandy. And as you know, Patton didn't go in on D-Day. And so my dad landed with Patton 14 days after the carnage on Omaha Beach. 75 years ago today, my dad's 95th Infantry Division, part of Patton's Third Army, was thrown up against the walls of the city of Metz, right on the Moselle River, the border between France and Germany. They suffered 65% casualties by the time the battle ended 19 days later. My dad was one of them. Last year, I had just getting ready to retire from Fox, and an Army colonel who I had covered in Iraq and Afghanistan was getting promoted to Brigadier General up at Fort Indiantown Gap, just north of where we live in Virginia. And so I was asked by the Army to go up and cover it because I had a great deal of pleasure covering the courage of General John Visser, and I'll go do it. Afterwards, we were invited to the reception. And at the reception at the Officers Club, which is up on the side of the hill, up overlooking the camp that had been built for World War II, this old guy, and I'm old enough to know an old guy. Old guy in a walker comes over to him and he says to me, he says, "You were born at Fort Sam Houston, October 7th, 1943. I said, "Yes, sir. How'd you know that?" He said, "I delivered you." I said, "Really?" "I'll tell you something else you don't know, Sonny. You were sired," that's the word he used, "you were sired right here at Fort Indiantown Gap." I said, "How do you know that, sir?" If my mom and dad were still alive, I'd ask them. "Well, it's very easy to figure out. We left Fort Niagara in January. We came here, and we left here in April, and you were born in October. Do the math, son. Just do the math." I raised my right hand in front of a Marine recruiter on the 29th of December, 1961, so that I could get credit for an extra year's longevity and not have to wait to New Year's. And that was the United States Marine Corps Reserve. And then after 22 years in the Corps, and not counting the time at Annapolis, I got to be a retired Marine. In 2001, Fox News hired me to host a documentary series originally called American Heroes, but changed the name to War Stories once the war began after 9/11/01. And I got to serve as a war correspondent. So bottom line is, I've spent my life in the company of people who wear uniform. And now that I have 18 grandkids, 11 boys and 7 girls, I also have my own baseball league. I say the word hero, and I called those of you who served in uniform as heroes, as well as your families, because the word hero is always distorted a lot in today's culture. You know, you say the word hero and somebody thinks of a guy catching the pass in the end zone, winning the ball game, climbing a new mountain, setting a new Olympic record. The fellow who won the Marine Corps Marathon this past year was described as a hero in the New York and the Washington Compost, a newspaper in D.C. You know, you say that. You say the word hero around the age of some of my grandkids. They think you're talking about something in a Marvel comic book, wearing spandex and a suit, you know, a cape, and their underwear outside their clothing. But in fact, the classical definition of the word hero is this: a person who puts themselves at risk for the benefit of another. That's the classical definition of it. And I've gotten to spend my time. My heroes don't wear spandex. My heroes wear flak jackets and helmets and flight suits, and they go to work in the most dangerous circumstances in the world. So why are heroes important to our culture? Well, heroes are important because they inspire us all to be better than we otherwise might be. They are an inspiration. So back to the question that Jennifer's folks asked me, and I just told you why I think what I'm about to tell you. The question was, what do you consider to be most important to veterans? That was the question her folks asked me. It might have been Michelle. Well, my answer is simple. They want to be productive. Whether they've been wounded or not, whether they've served 2 years or 4 years or 20 years, they want to be productive. They want to be able to provide for their families, to keep a roof over their heads, to food on the table, to raise their kids in a decent neighborhood with good schools, and they are willing to work hard to achieve just that. And those of us who know them that way see that kind of devotion every day. They want to be able to be productive. The vets that I know well from all the time I've been around them aren't looking for a hand out, but they sometimes need a hand up to join the civilian workforce, to new uniform, right? I mean, that's what it's really all about, to join the workforce, be productive to their families, their communities, and our country. And one of you mentioned a few moments ago about the value that that brings to not just a particular company, and not just to them, but to the community and the country as a whole. That only happens when businesses are able to hire veterans, and that's why ONU is so critical to what they're doing. Here are the 4 most important qualities that I believe vets bring to the civilian marketplace. Number 1, situational awareness. Number 2, leadership. Number 3, perseverance. And 4, they know the value of keeping the right kind of company. Now, I just want to elucidate just a little bit of that. What's situational awareness? The definition of situational awareness is knowing what's going on around you and having a plan to deal with it. And it's vital in combat. It's vital for law enforcement. How many law enforcement folks do we have here? Other American heroes right there. You know, if you don't have that on the streets of America today, you're in trouble. Now, I said I'm producing a show that we're advertising. It's not up on the web yet. You'll see some of the stuff on my internet. What's that place? It's Face Plant. But I'm actually doing it for the Carnegie Endowment for the Hero Medals for the Carnegie Endowment. And I would just tell you, we're looking for advertisers. And so we've asked them to send us advertising. Here's one that I think you'll realize when we're not using them as a sponsor.
Hey, bitte! So, langsam!
Nee, dat moet echt om daar nog.
Organization that shall remain nameless, AARP. I mean, do you understand why we didn't choose them as one of our sponsors? Here's another example. Betsy and I lead a group to Israel every other year. The last time we were out there, we're waiting in the lobby of the David Citadel Hotel for a couple to come down. We're going to go out to dinner with some of my Israeli friends. And as we're standing, Betsy's looking at the elevators coming down, the numbers on the elevator decreasing. I'm looking out the front window to see if the car that's going to take us to meet with our Israeli friends is there. And I see a tour bus pull in, and I tap her on the shoulder. By now, the tour bus, all you can see is the front end of it. And I'd seen the sign on the side of it that said, Mike Huckabee Holy Land Tours. So I said, that bus is full of gringos. And she says, how do you know? I said, because I have great situational awareness. First guy gets off the bus, walks right over to me, standing beside my wife in the elevator. He says, anybody ever tell you you look a lot like Ollie North? That's a darn good thing I look like him because I'm sleeping with his wife. And of course, guess who's not laughing at this? Ollie North's wife is not laughing at this. This happens way too often. And without missing a beat, he says to me, you better watch yourself. He's a U.S. Marine. He'll kick your butt. And he walks away. And at that point, Ollie North's wife says, you didn't see that one coming in, did you, Mr. Situational Awareness? I do want to show you what situational awareness really does look like. This is what it looks like in combat. This is real situational awareness. Got to watch fast. It's only 17 seconds long, and I survived it.
RPG. Stop!
Okay. You were supposed to run the edited version without the F word in it. I was sitting in that my helmet cam is wedged up against the windshield. But that's real situational awareness. When those guys, before the guy could pull the trigger and launch the RPG, remember in the movies, they launch an RPG in the movies, it goes boom, right? That ain't the way a real RPG works. That's the way a real RPG works. And he's yelling, RPG, RPG. The driver's already putting the vehicle in reverse to move it, and it goes off like that fast. That's real situational awareness. And that's the kind of thing that, quite frankly, these guys have in spades. And by the way, that quality of knowing what's going on around you and being able to deal with it because you got a plan is crucial in business as well. Been there, done that. I want to just show you just a little bit more about who these guys are. This runs about 2 minutes. It's a compilation of footage shot all over the world that I've been covering over the last 7 years. These guys operate tens of thousands I interviewed as a volunteer. And though the casualties are lighter, it's still dangerous. Thank God. In the video, you saw the lab, and you saw the yellow lab, and Smitty, his handler. I want to just show you one more picture of these guys, because what we're about to launch on is a helicopter assault. The teams are being broken up. You see each little group, and they're adding to them because the helicopter mix changed. No good plan survives the first moment of its execution. This one didn't either. And so it's the largest helo lift of the Afghan war. And the Marines are breaking down into their teams. And this team has a lieutenant and a staff sergeant, 2 sergeants, and a corporal. And they're going to go back and get other guys. But they see Smitty and Dexter coming to them. And I'm walking up. This is my helmet cam. I'm walking up on the group because I'm going to this helicopter. The reason I'm going on that helicopter is Dexter's going on that helicopter, and he's the only dog going on that assault. And I know what's going to happen because I've been with Dexter before. Dexter is not going to let me step on an IED because Dexter's not going to step on an IED, and I'm going to walk right behind Dexter. Well, I'm situational awareness, right? May not be enough for my wife, but it's enough to survive combat. And what they're doing is not high fives. They're not doing chest thumps. They're kneeling in prayer for Dexter and Smitty. They're kneeling down and say, guys, and the guy that led that was a Lance Corporal. It wasn't the staff sergeant, it wasn't the lieutenant, it wasn't one of the sergeants. It's the Lance Corporal, the E3. He's been in the Marine Corps for 1.5 years, and he's already on his 2nd deployment. He says, guys, Dexter and Smitty are going with us. Let's pray for him. Anybody standing up there? These guys get it. These guys can take vulgarity to the level of a new art form. You just heard some of that in that RPG flick, right? But they're also not afraid at all to kneel down and pray in front of one another. Now, I dare the ACLU to tell these government employees to stop praying on government time. I'd like to see it. Of the various qualities we're talking about, situational awareness, leadership. Here's what these guys know about leadership. Number 1, you have to model the behavior that you want from others. And even that Lance Corporal knew that. See? In other words, you model the behavior, the others will follow. They will give you the kind of behavior if you're their employee. If you're leading the right way, you're leading by example. Second, the best, and quite frankly, the best leaders I know are servant leaders. The person for whom they're actually employed, if he's the right kind of servant leader, he's going to inspire them, not dictate to them. He's not going to demand it. He's going to get the kind of results for his business that he's giving to them and down, in other words, leading down. I know there was some talk a few years ago about being able to lead from behind. You can't lead from behind. It's impossible. You have to set the example. You have to be out in front. It's important that the way you ask for things to be done allows it to actually happen. I mean, I try very, very hard, never ever to raise my voice with my grandkids. I'd like to be able to say I raised my kids that way, but are you kidding me, Dad? And so what I try to do now is when I need some behavioral changes, we used to go skiing a lot. I got hurt pretty bad overseas in 17, so I'd missed last year, but I became the chauffeur for the ski place that Betsy arranges in West Virginia. And so we'd drive over there independently. I used to take everybody that could go skiing in my car. Now there's 28 of us, okay? And so 18 of them are, ankle biters. And so I'm the chauffeur. Okay, 8-year-old ski school, get in the Suburban. Okay, then I come back and get the 10-year-old. So I just come back to the ski place. It's snowing like crazy outside. I'm trying not to slip and fall because I just had, the government issued me a brand new government-issued knee. It's great. Low bidder. And so I walk in just as one of the little girls comes rolling down the stairs. And I know exactly, and it's a ski place. The carpeting's that thick. I mean, it's impossible to hurt yourself. And her ego is just crushed. I grab her at the bottom. I look up and I say, I know exactly what happened here, but I'm not going to raise my voice. I walk up. Clint Eastwood would do it this way. You just pushed your sister down the stairs. You apologize right now. He looks up at me and uses my first name, sir. Sir? Sir, that's not my sister, that's my cousin. You go get your father right now, whoever he is, and bring him here. Only way to lead is by example. All right. The company you keep really matters. These guys have learned if you keep company with the right kind of people, and they did in almost every instance. They were around people who put themselves at risk for one another. They were completely dedicated and committed to the plan, to the mission, to the responsibility they had. These guys know more about responsibility and accountability than any CEO in America. I mean that, because they've been responsible for each other's lives and tens of millions of dollars worth of equipment. And yet when they walk into an HR that says they're looking for a particular position and his MOS fits that, and he walks into a hiring the hiring office, and he says, here's my experience in life. And some nitwit sitting behind the HR desk says, oh, let's see now, he's been in combat. I think we'll take the high school dropout. See, that's what it's trying to fix. And honest to goodness, it's important, not just to that youngster, but to his family, to your business, and to the community and our country. Those are the kinds of people who know accountability. They know to keep company with people who do that. They know the idea of integrity. It means everything. I've told them, and I do this all the time when I'm out talking to the guys, what's it like in the civilian world? It's tough. It's dog eat dog sometimes, it's cat. And so the last item I've got there is perseverance. Perseverance in adversity. These guys know how to persevere in adversity. They've gone days without enough water to drink. They've gone days sometimes with injuries. They've gone through the privations of watching other human beings die that they didn't necessarily kill, but they couldn't save them. And so I tell them, don't let a day pass without saying to someone you care about, how can I help you? My 5 favorite words. How can I help you? But you got to mean it. Because if you don't come through with what you said you do, you create unfulfilled expectations. And the greatest cause of anger on the planet Earth between parents and children, husbands and wives, teachers and students, between Marines and Marines is unfulfilled expectations. Think about that. These folks know that you cannot keep a good job if you don't fulfill the expectations that you yourself created. That's why you were hired. Every one of us who's employed people. When I was manufacturing armor, I had 53 manufacturing employees. By the time that they'd been there a few weeks, every one of them could put together an armored product better than I could. But I started them out by showing them the very best that I knew you could do. When the tension has to be just enough on the spectrum material that holds it all, that bonds it all together for a spall liner for a Bradley fighting vehicle. So what I'm saying to you is they understand how to persevere in adversity. They understand that role model leadership is important. They understand that selfless behavior is crucial. And that's the kind of people that I would hope everybody here would want to be hiring. So I want to just challenge you just a little bit, because I want to show you a couple things on the screen. But I just want to introduce the idea to you that all of those things that we've got, the scientific stuff, you saw the V-stall V-22, the Osprey coming in. That thing's got more moving parts than the city of New York, right? And it's still flying. It's like a bumblebee. The wings are too small, the props are too small, but it still gets up and flies and goes faster than any other rotary wing aircraft. And those guys who go out and operate and fix and maintain and fly those kinds of things know a lot more about it than I ever will. But they, in many cases, they know more than their maintenance officer, right? Because they do it every single day. And so what I'm saying to you and what Jennifer's suggesting about all of what we do is none of this would work well if we didn't have human beings making it all happen. In other words, the science and the technology, the engineering, all that stuff is important. And ultimately, the most important component in all of that isn't necessarily on the battlefield. It all comes back to recruiters and logisticians. Why? Because if the recruiters weren't doing their job, you wouldn't have anybody out there in that battlefield, right? So what's your job as a recruiter? I'm looking for volunteers to become recruiters so that next year, we can double Jennifer's dinner bill. I mean, have to roll back the walls. I mean, all you have to do is find someone who's not here tonight that you know and bring them next year. Recruit someone else who will become a donor, who will become part of this organization, become a volunteer, out there and encouraging people in the business place to look at veterans first rather than last when they need a job done. So we're looking for recruiters. We're also looking for logisticians. Look, in the military, the logistician is the person who delivers the beans, the Band-Aids, the bombs, the bullets, and the blood and containers. That's the logistics job. What's your job as a logistician for this great cause? Well, it also begins with B. It's bucks. It's bucks. So I want you to think about that. I just want to show you one last thing, and then I'll come back up. Because this is Veterans Day, you're going to get the preview of what will come up on the faceplant. What was it? Facebook. And, Facebook and Twitter. And this, by the way, it shows you the quality of the guys that I've got. By the way, my chief cameraman is a U.S. Army Ranger, 38 years old, wounded in Panama as a youngster. He's been with me on 60 some odd of those embeds in gunfire. And when I was hurt out there, I was not wounded. It said I was wounded. I was actually running, 75-year-old guy, running like crazy so I wouldn't get wounded. And I fell in a hole. I mean, talk about situational awareness. I mean, my helmet was flapping around on my head. It was the middle of the night, right outside of Mosul. The ISIS guys are firing mortars at us, and you could hear them walking on top of us. And we both jump up, and we start running with our Peshmerga lieutenant for the only bunker that was worth the name, built by the French Forward Observer. And in the midst of that, I fell in the hole and just crushed my right knee. So Dennis pulls me out of the hole and drags me up to the bunker, and we all survived. The Peshmerga guy behind me was actually wounded by the mortars. So Dennis probably saved me from getting hurt real bad. I tell you that story because Dennis is the cameraman that I take with me on all these little adventures. And Mike, the editor, is also a former U.S. Navy guy, a combat camera guy. And he's become one of the best editors in the business. So I just want to show you this. This is what you're getting. This is preview, right, for Veterans Day. So it'll start airing at midnight on Veterans Day. Please. On this special holiday, I salute America's soldiers, sailors, airmen, guardsmen, and Marines. Your veterans are the finest military the world has ever known. Every one of you raised your right hand and made a promise. I solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Consider the meaning of those words. That pledge is not to a pantheon, a person, or a political party. It's to the Constitution, all of it. And that oath ends with the words, "So help me God." So help me God. Ours is the only Constitution recognizing God, not some prince or potentate, as grantor of the blessings of liberty. Ours is the only country on this planet where every law officer, every member of our armed forces, and every elected official promises to support and defend a Constitution. Ours is the only Constitution with a Bill of Rights, protecting every citizen from the awesome power of government. Ours is the only founding document giving every law-abiding citizen the right to pray or not as we believe, to come and go as we want, to speak as we please, and among other freedoms, the right to keep and bear arms. I've raised my right hand to take and administer that oath hundreds of times since I first did so in front of a Marine recruiter on the 29th of December, 1961. And I've been blessed to spend nearly all of my now 76 years on Earth in the company of men and women like you. On behalf of my dear wife, Betsy, our children, and our 18 grandchildren, thank you for the sacrifices you, your mates, and your children have made when you volunteered to selflessly serve our nation as a member of our armed forces. And I ask all of you who see this to forward it to your friends with my humble request to pray for the widows and orphans of America's fallen, and to support the work of Freedom Alliance for the care they give to America's war heroes. Semper Fidelis. That's more than a slogan for U.S. Marines. Always faithful is a way of life. Before Michelle talks, you can introduce what's coming up, because it's also great.
Thank you. Can please give him another round of applause, Colonel Oliver North. We are so truly honored. Thank you for coming and speaking to us here in Jacksonville, Florida. We are truly honored to have you here. We wanted to take just a minute real quick and show a quick video, and then Colonel Oliver North is going to come back up and say a couple more things. So please look at the video.
I was in the Navy for 22 years. In the Navy, you build a family. While you move a lot, everywhere you move, the family is there with you. It just happens to be a different looking family every place you go.
The military allows you to take responsibility, actions, and do things you've never done before.
I joined as an enlisted service member. I was a cryptological technical maintenance person.
I served for 24 years, and I was an aviation structural mechanic.
Served aboard a submarine for 15 years. Served in combat over in Iraq and Afghanistan. Also served in Japan. Saw countries I never thought I'd see.
You always have a job there. As you move around, there's always, they have something for you to do. You don't have to worry about looking to find work. It just continues on.
It tells you what to do, where to live, and where to go. You don't have that when you exit the military and go into corporate America.
I was fortunate enough to earn my undergrad in electrical engineering, and I had an MBA that I earned while I was in the Navy. My expectation was that I would get out of the Navy and that everybody would want to hire me, and I'd have no problem at all.
When you get out, that pathway goes away. That camaraderie goes away, that friendship and network goes away, and you're thrown into a community where they tell you not to talk like you just have, and trying to fit into the new world and make yourself marketable is very frustrating and stressful.
The Navy decided, hey, your time is up, so now start looking for the future. That hit me really hard because my wife knows that my role, my identity has been the Navy. It's been an officer, it's been a leader, it's been a mentor. And she watched me go through a small bout of depression.
I had skills, like a myriad of different skills when I left the service. But it felt like I was lost at sea.
Imagine if you were dropped in Japan and you had to provide for your family, you had to get a career, and you had to adjust and not being able to speak the language. That's what I went through when I left the military and joined corporate America. It's like being isolated alone with not having the support you're used to.
Figuring out how to make that transition from the job that you did in the military to not feels like an impossible task at times.
So Operation New Uniform got started really just from wanting to give back. My husband and I had a company called Sandler Training, and we wanted to scholar a veteran through our program. We were thinking that one veteran would want to come through and that we would teach them how to sell themselves to potential business owners so they can get a career out in the business community. Well, that one veteran turned into 272 veterans to date.
Operation New Uniform is a program that has the ability to take a veteran that comes in the door with their confidence down, their identity lost, and truly what we hear over and over again at the graduations and beyond is that their lives have been transformed.
They come, many of those veterans, to Operation New Uniform looking for support, for guidance, for direction. And that's what our team does, and frankly does really well.
The success, over 90% placement. You can't find another program in America that does more than that.
ONU is really tops in shaping our warriors and giving them that 3-week deep dive into how to connect, how do you express yourself in corporate America, how do you network, what's your messaging?
I had the opportunity to become acquainted with Operation New Uniform, was astounded at the difference that ONU graduates brought in the way that they could articulate their skills, their resumes were better.
Our veterans are leaving the military, some of them at very young ages still, and they have so much more to offer, and ONU helps them to gain that confidence back and to put themselves out there and market themselves into a new career.
One particular gentleman looked at me. He goes, once we take off these uniforms, he said, people don't treat us the same. And that was a big light bulb for me. It was one of those moments when I knew that there was something going on here much deeper than I could ever understand. We had to help our veterans take that uniform off that they had served in, that's so important to them, and teach them how to get into a new uniform, which is a business suit. Each one of them is a shooting star because they can do anything they put their mind to. We are planning on growing, we're expanding, and we're so excited about it. We have 3 cities that we're looking to expand to in 3 years. So we have some great goals, but we need your help. Our dream is to go nationwide, to be able to offer this incredible program to veterans everywhere.
So, there's stuff on the table? Okay. So here's, remember I talked about you all becoming recruiters and logisticians. And I said that one of the best ways for people to learn how to do things is to watch other people do it, right? When I described my armor business, right? So, I mean, set the example. So I don't want you to think I just flew in here just to get the heck away from Washington. and shoot my mouth off. And by the way, a great meal. Thank you very much. But I came down for another purpose. I came down to show you that I actually believe what I was saying. And so I brought with me, Michelle, if you would come on up just for a sec here. I brought with me a check made out to Operation New Uniform for $1,000. And the note at the bottom, it said, Veterans Jobs. It's actually Betsy's check. She's got all the money I married up. But I just want to show you that I believe what I was talking about. And there's the check right there. Okay? It's not as simple as that, folks. I said the studio I worked at for 18 years, I was very rarely there. I was always off in some godforsaken hellhole the Marines, soldiers, and sailors and airmen are in. But my home bureau was Washington, D.C. Does anything come from Washington without strings attached? I mean, do you know of anything? I don't. And so, in the model of Washington, I'm going to give this check to Michelle with a little string attached. Could we bring up the lights, please? Just so that we can, just bring them up so I can actually see beyond the first row here. How about we kill a couple of real big lights back there? Huh? No, that's not working. Okay. Can we get someone who knows how to work the lights to show us how to work the lights? Yeah. Yes. You trying to land an A6 on the back of the carrier? No, that's much better. That's much better. Thank you. So, like I said, it's a check for $1,000 made out to Operation New Uniform for Veterans Jobs. And Michelle, of course, is expecting contributions. So what do you say that I'll give you this check if a certain number of people here will match it? And you don't have to do it tonight. Just make the pledge. And we're going to kind of do this like, an altar call in a good Baptist church. I want to see a show of hands. We're going to start over here on the left-hand side, and we're going to work our way to the right-hand side, and we'll see if we can come up. If there's not, one. That's one thing. Hold your hand up for as long as you want. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. Nobody, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000. Nobody else in that? 10,000. We're halfway there. Halfway there. 10. We got 11 in the back. 11 in the back. Ma'am, are you scratching or you win? You're 12,000, 13,000, 14. Yes, ma'am, I'll take that. 14,000 right here. You see, she had her hand up. Oh, you're pointing to somebody. Oh, I got you. So we're at 13,000. 13,000. We're trying to get 20,000 here. 14,000, 15,000, 16,000. We're trying. We're 17? Is that 17? 18, 19, 20, 21. Don't stop now. 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. How about 30? 30, right there. 30. God bless you all. Thank you.
What do you say after that? Is this really your address? My sister came down from New Jersey just so she could see you, and now she has your address, so you got to be very careful with those things. Thank you so much. We have something we want to give you as well, but I'm going to really flip things around on the schedule. Lori doesn't know this, wherever she is. I'd like to show a video if we could. I don't know if you're prepared back there, but I would like to show a video that we prepared that we've had something special made for you. Can we do that without really messing things up? You have a video.
My name is Mike Del Pizzo. I'm a retired Air Force Master Sergeant, but I have a hobby of woodworking. I read an article about the cremated remains of a veteran being laid to rest in a cardboard box. My wife, she reached out to the Jacksonville National Cemetery and asked them if they would have a need for cremation urns. I made 4 initially. 30 days later, they called me up, said, Mike, can you make some more? And to date, I've probably made north of 500 urns.
I met Mike at the Air Force Sergeants Association, and we've been friends ever since. Mike started with the urns, but then he built this special pledge flag. The artwork means so much, not only on the artwork of the flag, but also the frame that surrounds that. The flag, the pledge, the stars, and then the wood that comes from Steinway piano and Martin guitars, and the spun wire that surrounds that to signify the POWs and the MIAs. So that picture is very, very special. Very, very special to every veteran, and should be to every person in the United States. Very few times do you go through life and you meet a person that lives with their heart and their faith and their minds like Mike does to achieve the products that he does. The meaning that Mike does in the caring, to me, is unmatched from anybody that would be willing to volunteer and do this for other individuals that he does not even know.
It's just my way of paying it forward, and I will tell you this, there's no end in sight in this project.
So Colonel Oliver North, would you come up here for a moment, please? Come up here. Mike, would you mind doing the honors and bringing up a gift that Mike had made for you to thank you for coming here today and for all of your service?
Lieutenant Colonel, this is for you. It's an honor and a pleasure. You are a true American hero, and on behalf of Operation New Uniform, we'd like to present this to you. Thank you very much, sir.